G'day, it's Matt here from Couple of Sitters, and it is a beautiful Saturday morning. Klaus is up the back there sooking because he can't come down and join us. So what we are going to be doing today is running some cables. I've got some 240 volt over there. I'm going to be running through this side of the van to be able to make it a little bit easier for the electricians when they're doing the solar fit out. I need to get back to them about the situation with the 12 volt because the cables that I was asked to get and the clarity around what I needed wasn't really quite there. Again, I'm not a tradie, I'm not a sparky, but acting on what information I've got and not asking enough questions. There's a pro tip, ask more questions, Matthew. So, we have got the plan to install two of these Fresca fans. Now these are a nice looking little 360 degree unit. And I'm actually really quite happy with these. We picked these up online and we got them at a pretty good price. Just give me a second, I'm gonna adjust the camera a little bit there because you're a little bit off and you can't quite see into the van. That's better. No, I can't take that out in post-production. Tough, I'm just gonna have to deal with it. So, these units are really quite tidy. I don't want to go ripping it out too quickly because I don't want to accidentally drop it. Okay, so we've got the ability with these to be able to pivot them this way quite easily and also this way. So what that gives us is the flexibility to be able to take this bottom mount piece and stick that pretty much anywhere. Now we're going to stick it on the roof. We were thinking about on the side wall of the van, like one of the panels just up here. But the problem is, with the way the van's been built, it's a little hard to run the cabling up through there. There are no entry points or exit points, and it would mean like cutting into panels, and that's not something that's going to happen. So that's just the way we're going to tackle it. We're going to mount them to the roof. We're going to run the cabling up along and use that roof cavity as our opportunity to be able to run the cables through. Now the area where I was saying that I've got a bit of a concern with these and how the wiring setup is going to go comes down to the fact that in the wiring kit, they've got these tiny little wires here, right? There isn't much to those. I don't know what you call those, if they're like a 16G or a 4 million G or whatever it bloody is, but they're tiny. They're maybe 0.5 millimeter, 3/4 of a millimeter, not very thick as far as like the inner gauge of the wire goes, but they've got a couple of little, I think they're called shovel mounts on the end there for the positive and the negative. But what the guys were saying at the solar joint or the caravan renovation joint that they're going to be doing the licensed electrician work and the solar work that I'm not comfortable doing is that as we're running the cables through to get it from where we're looking at one point in the van here, it's got to come from the back corner over along the top, run along the roof, and then get to the entry where it's required there. Now I've measured this up and I think I'm needing about 40 meters of 12 volt cabling. The challenge with the 12 volt cable and the solar is the longer the cable, the more power loss you get along the way. And we were told, well, you'll need to probably step up the gauge of the wire. And I was told to go and have a look for about a 6 millimeter 12 volt wire. So that's roughly, where's the lens? There we go, it's over there, look at that. That's roughly, I'm gonna step out of the frame. That, come on focus, there you go. There you go, that's roughly 6 millimeters per wire, and there's these tiny little things here. So, I think the question that I've got is, am I getting the right wire if I go and get this stuff? And it's not cheap, it's about 30 bucks a meter. And if I need 40 meters of this stuff, it's a pretty hefty outlay in wiring. And there's no refund if I've got the wrong wire and it's been cut and I've purchased it. So I'm going to give them a ring on Monday morning and just have a chat and say, okay, look, what do I need? Is it 4G or 6G wiring? You know, you're telling me 6 millimeters. Is there a particular type of wiring that I need to make sure I get, because that's tiny, that's huge. I'm not a sparky, but I would struggle to see how you'd basically attach these two to each other, you know. Anyhow, that's a job for Monday to figure out. So today's gig is going to be running some conduit along the inside of the wall there and running the 240 volt wiring, which I've already got. The wiring that I've gone for at the 240 volts, I picked that up at Bunnings, and it's the right kind of wiring that you would use, or the right kind of wiring, there's a big assumption, isn't it? I was advised that the wiring is suitable for lights and general power in a domestic build. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using that to run some normal power points off of. And those power points are going to be used at the back end for our kitchen appliances. And down the front, it's going to be for the 2 laptops and the 2 monitors. And then there'll be a spare GPO towards the middle, which is going to be for charging anything else up that we may have that we need, or any other appliances that we plug into from time to time should we need something up in the middle there. As a bit of future proofing, one of the other things that I'm going to be doing is running 2 lengths of conduit about 3 meters long up the side of the vehicle. I will be putting the wiring inside some conduit pockets. There's most of the panel areas I'm running it through is pretty smooth, but where it's not, I'll be mounting some conduit in there to feed it through so the wiring's not touching and rubbing against metal and vibrating, potentially wearing or cutting over thousands of kilometers. So reducing the risk of that, but having another 2 runs of pipe up there is going to give us a bit more flexibility, or the next person a bit more flexibility in relation to should they need to run additional wiring down, they can just feed it straight through. We'll have a diagram with measurements and pre-panel installation showing where the conduit starts and ends and where the measurements are. So that'll make it easier should someone decide that they need to run more wires from the back part way up to the front or all the way to the front, to just feed them straight through the pipes and get them to where they need to be. Hopefully make their lives easier, or ours in the future. So that's a part of the process for today. And the other thing that we have picked up online as well, again, we saved a bit by doing this online, is a ceiling fan or a ceiling vent. Now this little unit, I think we got for about 130 bucks, 140 bucks. And it's the same as the units that we're seeing in the caravan fit out joints for about 300 bucks. So 3-speed fan in one direction, 2-speed in the other. The little hatch on the top here is what goes up to the roof. It's got a little garnish section here, which that just slides straight in and we mount that on the inside. The wiring all gets matched up. Depending on which way we want the directions of the fan to run, because it's got 2-speed in one direction and 3-speed in the other, is going to depend on how it's going to run is going to depend on how the wiring configuration is done. So positive and negative will get flipped around to change the direction of the fan, or the red and the white get flipped around, whatever that means. So we're going to go for 3 speeds in, 2 speeds out. I think largely because we want to have more cooler air from the outside potentially coming into the van on the inside. I don't think we're too worried about trying to get air to escape out of the van, because we've got this awesome little tow hitch joiner looking thing that connects to the latch mechanism on the back of the door and sort of feeds into the latch mount, whatever you call it down here. I'll show you a little later in the video. And we can then just hitch that together, and that gives us maybe 5 centimeters of airflow coming around the back door, because the back door is slightly open, and we can trip the locking mechanism so that you can't actually open the door. So this thing means the door's locked but partially open. It's a great little tool. It's only about 20 bucks. So with this, that's going to be going up roughly, what do we got? 1, 2, 3 sections forward as far as the joints go in the van, or the joists. The joist section that we're going to be mounting this into, between those struts, supports, joists, whatever you call them, there's 340 millimeters from, they sort of have a lip, come down, across, go back and have another lip, and at the lip is where it joins and meets the roof. From the lip, where you've pretty much got contact directly with the roof to the neck slip where there's contact with the roof, 340 millimeters between those two spaces. This only needs 290 millimeters to be able to go in, so that's going to fit perfectly in that little spot there. We're going to be planning to put insulation in on the sides and in the roof as well. I've got a big bag of the wool over there, and our original discussion that we had was around using the original roof, and we're going to put felt over the top of that. But the problem that that presents is when it comes to mounting the fans as one part, not so much this, because the garnish will be able to like firmly connect up to whatever it's mounted to, and we could box it in on the inside. The roof won't be able to hold the weight of the fans. It'll be way too sloppy. So we're going to be putting a skeleton up there, or a frame, probably light pine, and then we'll be putting 3mm ply and just getting it to follow the contour of the original shape. We'll cut the corners in nice and clean, and we'll be able to recess it back in. We'll use the original roof as a part of our stencil, because when that's flattened out, we know that that fits the curvature that's required and the shape should be right. So we'll end up with a nice clean finish, we hope. We'll make sure that whatever we're putting in doesn't come any further down than the original roof mount area. So it should really be a nice little snug fit. If it needs a little bit of trimming, we can always do that. We're prepared to put in the work, clearly. So I'm going to box these back up, and I'm going to get stuck into running pipes, putting insulation in, putting cables in, and just making sure that stuff's ready before I get to the next stage, which, let's see what that brings for today. I could be starting to plan out the rear drawers. I've got the sliders over there, so yeah, I'm going to get stuck into it. So we're back. Bit of an update. We've run the cables, so they're all going through. We've got the pipe up the top there for future use. Put some extra little bits in here to be able to help protect it in areas where it might rub against the metal, and done that there as well. Bit of a pain to get grommets for this sort of thing, so I've used the butyl rubber and just put some padding around those areas there. So there's a strong chance that the 12-volt cables will feed through some of those holes, so that's all set for there. We've got a little bit of cushioning there too for the 12-volt, and what I had to do was cut a little hole down the bottom here into the box, and that's to allow for the cables to be fed through the box in a wheel arch, and then they're going to come, let me show you, they're going to go, get out of the road, Matthew. So the cables are going to go through that box in the wheel arch there, cross over into there, and then run along. I might even be able to utilise the space inside the wheel hub here, run it across, and then go over on that part there and straight through. So if I need to split it because there's too many, I'll do that. Next, we're going to start packing insulation in on the passenger side, and I'll start doing some on the driver's side too. I'm not going to bother putting this rear panel back on because cables are going to run through there once I know what 12-volt cables I'm going to need. So we'll see how that goes. All right, I'm back into it. Rightio, So we have got the wires run through. I've done a bit of work on the roof, fixing up the last of the insulation. Well, the deadener. Got the insulation here. Now I'm going to do the walls first. Both sides, a little bit to go down there. Behind you, turn around, have a look. Like directly behind you, right now. I'm putting insulation in. Shh. That was crap, wasn't it? So we're going to be whacking this in on both sides of the van. This area where I've got the 12 volt that needs to go through, I'm not going to be putting the masonite cover back on and then putting ply over the top and finishing that up. I will be doing it at the front though, because there'll be no need to run any 12 volt through there, and I will be doing it on this side. That may happen tomorrow, later today. We'll see how we go for time. But this job, it's going to require a little bit of PPE apparently. So got the ski goggles and the gardening gloves, and that's about as good as it's going to get at the moment. Kids, don't take a health and safety tip from me, eh? So we're working with what we got. The van's got both doors open, good insulation going. Good insulation going in, good ventilation going through. So yeah, we're hoping that this is going to help us with preventing a bit of heat coming through into the vehicle and losing heat when it gets cold. Not so much these parts of the walls, but we've felt on the insides when we've had these off and the sun's on it, you can definitely feel that heat starting to radiate through. So plan of attack is to try and cut down on that, and also with the roof too. Okay, quick update. Insulation in, wiring pulled. Got to do 12 volt as well next. Little hole there to be able to feed the 12 volt through. That's been insulated, put back up. Oh look, freight cage is in. Haha, we're getting there. Winning. And at the front, steps done. I've got a little bit to take off that corner there just to make it nice fit. Yep, drawers are in. Domo, you'll love this. Look at that, there's no mouse poo, no nuts. And with that cage in, that's how accessible the engine is, so there's a fair bit of room in there to do. It's good. I think it's all right. Let me know what you reckon. Next step is to build the framework to be able to put the roof up, and we're going to put the insulation up there as well. We're going to leave that space clear so that the vent can be cut in. Going to run 12 volt wires up there, so it's all good to go. Well, it's been a pretty, pretty busy day so far. Quite happy with what we've been able to achieve, but I'm not done yet. Speaking of not done yet, this is what I was talking about before, this little duvallaki that goes in. So I'll come a little closer for you. So what happens is this end here latches in to the clasp at the bottom, whatever that little bolt bit is. It just sort of like, in it goes out like that, right? And that bit goes onto the latching mechanism on the door. And once the door is closed, you can't actually pull this back out. And that's going to give us probably 50 millimeters, 60 millimeters of open, breathable airspace towards the bottom, and obviously tapering off towards the top. But the great thing about it is it's not expensive, and you're not compromising security if you're out camping somewhere and you need that little bit of more airflow, particularly in those warmer, more humid areas. So great little pickup. You can get these on eBay. They're not hard to find. I'll chuck a link to this one in the description, or the name of it, whatever it might be. We're not going to make anything on referrals for it. Doesn't matter, but it's a cool little tool, well worth getting. All right, I'm going to start unloading because I've been up at Bunnings, as you can tell. More ply, more timber, and hopefully I can get it done today. Planning on running insulation along the roof. So we'll see how this goes. It's just me doing it. I'm not too sure how I'm going to go because gravity's a bit of a challenge and I can't gaffer tape the insulation up. So I'm thinking I might run some string up and back between the battens and see how I go feeding the insulation into there. And then once it goes up, this can stay up there. I don't really care. It's just nylon. So yeah, we'll give it a crack. We'll see what goes. The worst that happens is I get covered in shit and I've spent $6 on string that didn't work. And I'm gonna have to wait for Chrissy to come back, which will be in about 8 days' time. I'd rather have this done before then though. So let's see how we go. Well, I think that's it for the day. I've just run the string across. I've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4. Jeez, I felt like I did more than 4 runs. I've only done 4 runs. It felt like a lot more than 4. And getting it in between the battens up the top, which you can't see in the camera there, but you're watching me do it before. And the roof, which has been, I think, more glued on than anything else. It was tight. It was really, really tight, and I fashioned a little tool to help me actually push and feed the string through. So a plant tag, cut the little flippy bit off the bottom that was catching and being annoying, and cut a little hole in the top, thread it through, and just slide it in. And yeah, inexpensive, but very, very useful. So there isn't a lot of space there. There's probably, there was just enough in some areas to feed that tag through. In some cases I had to push up a little bit to get the tag to fit. Cut away a couple of areas of the butyl rubber which had overlapped the edges of the battens. But that's okay, it all worked out. So probably a bit ambitious to think that I was going to get the insulation in tonight as well. Or this afternoon. It's now tonight. The sun's pretty much gone down. I think it's coming up to 5:30, 6 o'clock. You don't get much daylight here in Queensland. On the back end of the day, that is. Mornings, summertime, yeah, the sun's up at 5, you know, sometimes earlier. But depending on where you are, if you're down on the coast. But up here in Brisbane, yeah, it's done and dusted by about 5:30, 6 o'clock. It's starting to get dark. And the street lights were already on, so I've got to go home. All right, I'm going to pack up. Catch you on the next one. You'll watch me put this insulation up, and then I'll talk about some other stuff. We'll figure it out. All right, see ya.